Welcome to the InShape Fitness Show and happy Global Running Day. I'm Coach Kim from InShape Fitness in New York City, and it is Global Running Day today. As I record this podcast, I've been out in Central Park in New York City in Manhattan running with a couple of my private clients and seeing all of the amazing, the spirited people that are out either giving running a chance for the very first time or taking advantage of the fact that this is a really great day to enjoy the community of running in different places around the world. So it's not just obviously in New York City, but lots of cities have celebrations, recreational races going on and timed events and so on. And we're going to talk today about running because whether you want to run a race or whether you just want your body to feel good when you're moving around on 2 feet at any pace, there are some things that you should know, some things that you should do to help build the strength in your core, to help stabilize your body, and to understand the differences between the right leg and the left leg. It's a concept that I describe as pivoting. The word I use is pivoting with my private clients in New York City. And the material that I've written about in my book, Darwin on the Treadmill, relative to how the right leg or your dominant leg is can be very disruptive to the distance that you're able to travel without pain and suffering, because you end up favoring the weaker of your legs. And for most people, that means you have a weaker left leg than right leg. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about my favorite running culture, the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico, and one of my all-time favorite books, Born to Run by Christopher McDougall, because I had a positive view of running before I read that book, but the transformative view that I came away with after reading that book has helped me not get more competitive and run faster, like to have personal best times, because I don't really care so much about that, nor do any of the people that I work with really in terms of my clients, but because I just enjoy being on my feet and I want to be on my feet more, and therefore I do the right things for my body that help me, sort of go that distance, whatever it is on any given day. And in, our fast-paced lives, being able to move about quickly is really helpful. So not that you need to, run around like a crazy person all the time, but being able to relax and chill and just sort of enjoy the solace of being still is just as valuable. But when I am going, I do want to be able to move without feeling aches and pains or having to take medication to offset those aches and pains. So let's start with a postural systems check, because that's always a really great way to start. Stand up really tall or sit up really tall in your chair, or stand up really tall with your feet touching, heels and toes touching, and squeeze your knees together just a little bit. You can pretend, as you take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth, you can pretend that you're kind of a puppet, that you're maybe a marionette where there's a string attached to the top of your head, pulling you, elongating your spine, lifting you up through your rib cage and through the individual increments, the individual vertebra of your spine. That elasticity in your spine, right? It's not just the bones. And when you get older and the discs, which are soft tissue, when they deteriorate, that's how you lose range of motion and function in your spine and in your trunk. It's how pain and suffering for a lot of people begin. And it's caused a lot by sitting down most of the day. So when you have or doing a postural systems check, really take a couple of deep breaths as you just think about the elongation of your spine, and lo and behold, it will happen. Now continue taking more deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and think about where your head is in relation to your chest and your back. You want a straight line, a straight vertical line that runs down the side of your body. It's called the plumb line. And if your ears and your shoulders make a straight line, your head is in the right position. You should be able to turn your head all the way to the right, 90 degrees. And if you extend your arm out to the side and you turn your head to the right, you should be able to gaze down the length of your right arm. In fact, we're going to do maybe 2 exercises just because they're so great in terms of the stability of your body. Even a sedentary body can benefit from a couple of slight adjustments related to deviations of good posture when you're either sitting or standing or even walking. And so as we talk a little bit about and I provide you with some tips about running, these small adjustments that you can make do actually benefit the sort of the idea of potentially jogging or walking fast or hiking or walking farther or potentially running or potentially running races and potentially going into crazy time, sort of the world of part of my life, which is training people to run the New York City Marathon every year. So that just kicked off. In fact, if you are joining us and you are one of my running clients, teammates from the Roadrunners Club in New York City called Team for Kids, welcome. And it's very exciting. I know a few of you listen to these podcasts, my teammates from those events where we get together and we are in Central Park most of the time and we build strength, we build camaraderie and build motivation to be out and run in, from 30 minutes at the start of the season up to several hours, 3 hours in length in terms of long runs before you head into what might be something between 4 and 6 hour experience on marathon day. Anyone can do that. So now that we are finishing up that postural systems check, just think a little bit about the tilt of your pelvis or the position of your pelvis. Tuck in your tailbone a little bit to make sure that your pelvis is straight and zip up your tummy muscles. Now, the reason that I talk about pivoting as a major consideration for modern exercise regimens is because we have this really interesting issue with our modern bodies where unless you are a manual laborer, if you are sitting at a desk for most of the day, you're not really exercising all that much. But if you have bought into the notion that you need to exercise, first of all, congratulations for that. But second of all, what tends to happen with people is that they are told that they need some cardio exercise, which is very true. They need to elevate the heart rate, which is very true. A certain amount of time over a period of, say, a week. Doctors, sort of vary in their recommendations, but you do need to boost the operations of your cardiovascular system, cardiorespiratory systems, in order to keep your heart healthy, to keep oxygenated blood pumping through your veins, and to keep your tissues and your metabolism firing at the rate that's conducive to the rest of your lifestyle. But what happens is that most sedentary people then take that advice and they turn it into a couple days in a gym, or maybe a couple of walks per week, maybe a trip to a track and a short, sort of period of time jogging around a track, or maybe to a pool or on a bicycle. And because one leg is naturally stronger than the other, more dominant. Most right-handed people have a right dominant leg, which means that when you begin to adopt an exercise regimen over time, your right leg does just a little more work than the left leg. It develops over time, slowly, something I like to call lame left leg syndrome. And a lot of my clients have it. A lot of people have it. 90% of the population has it because they are right-handed, or at least 90% of the exercising population. So we do a lot of work just focused on your awareness of the strength differences between your left leg and your right leg. The fastest, easiest demonstration for yourself, I can't see you obviously, so you're going to have to just do this, is to stand up, to plant your right foot, if you're right-handed, plant your right foot straight, your toes face forward, and lift up your left leg. So there's a balance. Now, the fastest way for your balance to have to kick in big time is for you to shut your eyes. So if you can stabilize your body for 10 seconds, that's it, with your eyes closed on your right leg, that's awesome. Are you trying it? I hope you're trying it, because now I want you to try with the left leg. So position your foot on your left foot, same thing, toes face forward, lift up your right foot, and then close your eyes. If it feels really different, slightly different, not such a big deal, but if it feels different, significantly different, especially, you have for sure this issue. And what that means is that your exercise regimens, in terms of not the cardiovascular type of stuff like getting on a treadmill, going for a bike ride, going out for a jog in a park or hike or whatever, but some of the prep work, the mise en place, sometimes I call it, for your running experiences are to get onto a floor and do planks and hip bridges, lunges, and anything else you can think of that is safe for you based on your own bodily strength and doctor's recommendations and or thumbs up. But also, the factor that's important here is forcing your legs to work independently of one another. Lunges are a really great way to work the legs, to work multiple parts of the legs. So you're with a lunge, of course, you're working a little bit of your hips, your butt, your quads, your hamstrings, and you're stabilizing through your feet and your lower legs. So you're really activating you're also interacting with gravity. So you're elevating your heart rate a little bit with lunges. So you're really doing a lot of work with the lunges. The tricky part with lunges, of course, is that a lot of people have knee issues. So you've got to be careful about that. The other thing that you can do if you don't have the ability to do a lunge are things like sumo squats, where you squat down and you lift up one leg as you come up, or even things like forward kicks or side kicks. Okay, so I want to talk. So we have, because of our sedentary lives, we have to do a lot of the mise en place, a lot of prep work, the pre-run calisthenics to prepare the body to move about in a productive way and enjoy something like Global Running Day. And people are out in Central Park today. They are smiling through their pain and having just this great time running a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a really long running experience for you ever. Running a marathon is not something that everybody should do or has the time to do, the ability to do. But as sedentary individuals, we do have this issue with the need to prepare the body to run before the run actually happens. And that is the first really important piece of advice. I guess it's really the second piece of advice that I'm giving you right now, because the first one was be aware, take note of the strength between your right leg and your left leg. When you run, if you decide you want to jog, the left leg, the leg that's weaker, is going to tire faster. It's going to fatigue faster, which means that you will exacerbate, you will make the dominant leg do more work, which it's willing to do, of course, because you're pushing it. But over time, that difference the gap will widen, and you will end up with a really significant difference. And guess what else can happen? So the consequence, sort of the long-term consequences of this very, very individual and distinctive, but maybe very minimal initial issue. The difference is tiny, that you can't tell the difference of. Like, you can't look at yourself and see that one leg is bigger than the other. But over time, your left leg becomes weak enough that you run the risk of acute injury in your left leg. The right leg runs the risk of developing repetitive stress. So if you're a novice runner, you've been out there running, and you love the idea of potentially running something long, like maybe running a half marathon or running a marathon, and you're right-handed, I'll bet you might have some right hip, right knee, potentially right foot issues, and left lower back issues. Those are keys to what this difference, how to define it for yourself, how to understand it for yourself, the difference. So that was the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is to warm up, to do some of the calisthenic, the mise en place work before you hit the pavement and head out. Really, really, really important. Okay, so I want to talk about a group of people that don't do this. They are more, I tend to take advantage of the good health that I've developed over the years. And often if I'm trying to squeeze in a run, I just head out the door. I don't do very much in terms of preparing my body. However, you do need to if you're getting started. Americans, especially American sort of competitive-minded but sedentary physical humans in the United States really do need to do a warm-up before they head out to do to run. The Tarahumara culture is not like that very much. They're like running savants, and that book Born to Run, if you haven't read it, please pick it up. It's such an incredible book about the beauty, that sort of bridge between the science of running and the art that you develop over time if you do it, if you try to become a student of it, a student of cultures like the Tarahumara, and understand that from our ancestral gift, from an evolutionary perspective, was being able to run. That's what we did. That's why we are who we are. We don't have tails. We don't have wings. We have big brains, and we have 2 feet. And so your ability to move on those 2 feet, to go and get stuff done, is a part of what you're supposed to be able to do as a human being. The Tarahumara don't get this lame left leg syndrome. It's kind of a lost art, their form of the community that they live in, and you know, they're not out to get the latest fancy gadgets. They don't live in fancy homes. They don't have fancy clothes. They don't drive fast cars. These people, they are amazing though, and there's a lot of Born to Run. This book is about the writer, who is Christopher McDougall, a writer turned into a runner through this experience, who made his way through the villages in Mexico and the Copper Canyons with this group of people that really highlights the movement possibilities that lie within all of us. These people, the Tarahumara, they're farmers, they're weavers, they make beer, they're merchants. They don't spend a lot of their time seated at a desk or sitting down, period. Runners from their tribe have been known, though, to win harsh, long, grueling races, foot races, but they don't really train. Think about this. So if you're an American, you're listening to this podcast maybe from your office or on your way to work, or just thinking about running and getting excited about running because it is Global Running Day, we make a part-time job out of getting our bodies in shape if we set about to do something physical, like potentially train for a half marathon or a marathon. The Tarahumara they're more likely to show up at the start line of a race. And they have a lot of like recreational sort of casual races. They're more likely to start up at the line of a race hungover than they are showing up with, like a gold star for making it to each of their scheduled training workouts. Are they simply different, like genetically speaking? Is there a genetic basis for their ability to travel on their feet without injury or chronic pain? Scientists don't think so. In fact, I was just reading an article. I don't know why I was looking at this. I think it had something to do with the environment. And my daughter and I were talking about looking at a documentary about the differences among people and how Homo sapiens, are so connected to primates and maybe it's just a evolutionary sort of thing and environmental issues. And one of the interesting factoids we got was that if you line up a bunch of zebras, to people, a bunch of zebras, like line 10 zebras up next to each other, they all look identical to us. But there are more genetic differences between or among zebras in a group than there are if you walk into the United Nations and see 10 people from 10 different countries of, varying races and genders. More differences between any two zebras. It's fascinating, right? So there's not necessarily anything genetically predisposed to the ability to run elegantly and effortlessly. But this culture is in multidimensional motion all of the time, which among different things about that, it prevents one side of the body from dominating the other. It keeps that issue that I was talking about earlier at bay, because your legs, you're reaching for things, you're crouching down, you're turning around. All of that multidimensional movement helps keep your body balanced and in check over time. Now, as you get older and the issues of lame left leg syndrome, having a dominant side, sitting too long, and then wanting to go out and do cool stuff as you get older. In fact, one of the things that I talk a lot about with people is as their kids get a little bit older and they're able to do more independently, the parents are able to do more independently, and they can go back to enjoying some of the physical exercise that they used to do, maybe playing a little more tennis or going for those longer runs, or maybe going out for activities with other friends that involve moving around, whether it's, as I said, tennis or just going to a yoga session or whatever. So it's this time period in your life when you are still able to move, but you are starting to feel the side effects of sedentary lives. That hopefully is a wake-up call for you. And as I leave you now, I want to just make sure that you know on Global Running Day, that is not just sort of a blowing, a chiming bell like in a clock tower, or a blowing horn, or an alarm clock telling you, go out and run 5 miles, go out and run a marathon, go out and run or whatever. You want to make sure that your body is able to run. So even if you just take a walk on Global Running Day, move your feet, develop a sense of awareness of what your strengths are, write them down, think about a couple of exercises that you can do to warm your body up. As I said before, lunges, plank, hip bridges. Now, if you want some independent leg work with bridges, you just lift one leg up and do hip bridges with one leg. So exercise before you go out, warm your body up, stimulate it before you head out, and you will enjoy Global Running Day a lot more. Have a great day. I will see you again soon.